Right. Awesome. Thank you, Griff, for taking the time. Um,
My pleasure.
to, Today, I wanted to do this just because, as you know, we're working on the token engineering commons, and the idea of this video is to align everyone that is participating in the story canvas, and yeah, that basically anyone can understand what are the different type of audiences, what is the different type of messages that we want to transmit, and also what are the different type of outcomes and indicators that we should might be looking at. So yeah.
Sweet. That sounds like fun.
All right, awesome. So first of all, I would like you to tell me a little bit about what are the type of what are the type of mechanisms that we're going to be using for the hatching.
For the hatching, okay. Yeah, because the commons has three main parts, and the hatch, the bonding curve, and the conviction voting piece. And I guess maybe a fourth part, the dandelion voting piece. So the hatch, it's a pretty simple piece where it's the initialization of the bonding curve. There's the big questions are who is allowed to participate in the hatch, and that's probably going to be C-stack token holders plus maybe some influential people in the token engineering commons. Not really sure. Onboarding working group will have to kind of think about that, and the tech spec will end up having to implement it. So there's kind of the gate in who can participate in the hatch. And then there's also in the hatch the cultural build tribute, which is the percentage of tokens that end up going to the people who are working right now and gaining impact hours. So that's an important piece of the hatch that needs to be discovered and thought about and designed.
And why is that important, Griff?
Because that's how we reward the sweat equity, how we dish out sweat equity for the people who are contributing value that's not so easy to quantify. I mean, we're doing our best to quantify it, but like there's people who put in money and there's people who put in time and effort, and they should all be rewarded.
Okay, just a quick summary. What is sweat equity for those one who don't know what sweat equity means?
It's like putting in a lot of work and earning your keep versus investors who just put in money, which money is great, and it's the oil that makes the machine run, but someone's actually got to run the machine. And so instead of it being investors get all the shares and governance power and then everyone's an employee, we got to find a way to balance it so that the people who are working have the same voice as the people who are contributing funds.
That makes absolutely sense. Okay, but then what is the purpose of these let's say commons that we're creating? What is the main purpose of it?
Well, we have a vision, mission, and values, and long-term goals, and short-term goals, and all these things. So I would say that it's really, that stuff is pretty well documented, and we're going to review it next week as well, and make sure that we all agree with it, because there's been a nice influx of people and all this stuff. But the real vision or the core mission is to coordinate value production within the token engineering public goods space. So, to unpack that, it's like we want to produce open and free, accessible tooling and documentation and understanding of the token engineering field, and make sure that's accessible to all, and create positive sum games around building this value within the token engineering field.
All right, thanks for that. Okay, so then for the hatching, you mentioned that you need those people that are going to be bringing these, let's say, resources that are not necessarily attached to money, but that could be, sweat equity or other type of resources. What other type of people are necessary for this ecosystem to start? Apart from the ones that are bringing sweat equity, and what are those? Also, if you can explain, what are those type of people that are bringing this type of capital, which is the human capital?
Yeah, I mean, we can't ignore the fact that the way this is set up is that we do need people to put in capital. We are bootstrapping an economy through capital injection, and it's pretty cool because we can multiply the capital through the economic, the bonding curve, which is really powerful. But in the end, we also need to be careful that the people who are bringing in money are not there to make profits. We have a purpose. We're not DAOing just to make money. We're DAOing to create value in the token engineering space. So the people who put money in will end up with governance power over token engineering. And this is also the case with the people who earn impact hours. People who earn impact hours will end up with governance authority over this big pot of funds that ends up with the core purpose of, pushing the token engineering field forward. So
Amazing.
we need people who will make good decisions. We need
All
people
right.
who care about actually creating value for token engineering.
And how do we filter those good people? How do you think that we should filter those good people?
Common Stack has been working on this for a year and a half. We have this like form that people fill out, the application form for being part of the token engineering common. Part of it is being part of the token engineering commons. So we have this form, we fill it out, and like straight up Lorelei just looks at this, and soon it's going to be me or someone else from the token engineering community is going to like come in and also help. But we just look at the applications and we make subjective judgments. I mean, I wish it were cooler than that, but like we're not, this isn't a research project. This is we're actually doing this. So we have to manage practicality with like optimal situation. But the main thing is that we have, there is a power dynamic there. We just have to make sure that there's accountability and transparency so that the power dynamic can be balanced with the needs of the community.
Sounds great. What are those different type of roles within the community that are necessary? Let's say for the very beginning, for the hatching, we know that there's a comms channel, there's a self-government, self-gov channel or working group. What are those type of working groups, and what are the type of people that should be within those working groups, more or less?
It's really interesting because there's this, it's really hard sometimes to keep our minds in one side or the other. There's kind of this like timeline, like BC and AD, it's like before, maybe it's BH and AH, like before the hatch and after the hatch. And they're very, very different. Before the hatch, we need the legal working group. We'll probably need these working groups after the hatch too, but like they have completely different perspectives.
Yeah.
So before the hatch, we need the tech spec working group. We need the soft gov working group. We need the onboarding working group. We need the legal working group. We need the comms working group. And I think we could probably get away with just those guys. Although there are probably other opportunities for like, if the scope gets too big, we might break them off into smaller working groups. But I think we could probably get away with just those 5. But after that, we're also going to need the onboarding working group, for instance. We'll probably need to break up into like people who are supporting the hatchers, people who are supporting the projects, and also kind of like maybe even doing some sort of third-party certification agency on the projects. Someone maybe, this is the crazy thing. Like we're going to create a very decentralized baseline system, and then we're going to create power dynamics that are accountable to the decentralized baseline system. So maybe we need to have a proposal for conflict resolution people, like a conflict resolution group. Maybe we need a proposal that funds a small group to like certify proposals and say that these proposals meet the minimum criteria, and even a rating system for proposals. Maybe there's a working group or a small executive group that just manages the Twitters, like the comms department, the Twitter, the Discord, we're going to end up having like little groups of almost employees that work for the DAO, and they're going to be effectively their own little like point of centralization and have a certain power dynamic around them, where they have a domain or they have some kind of system And then hopefully we can manage those power dynamics by calling them out first off, and then having some kind of accountability and metrics and systems in place where everyone feels good.
Great. Okay, so just coming back to the two different stages, the hatching and the after hatching. For the hatching, what is the story? What is the key message? What do we need to transmit to all the people that might be interested in joining the organization, and why they should care about joining this organization?
Well, first off, token engineering is critical for the future of our societies. We have an opportunity to build economic coordination games that have never been, to solve huge problems that we have in society. From the common stack perspective, funding public goods, like when you donate to a nonprofit, you are like getting minus points in the economic game. You're losing the game by donating. Like, this is crazy. You should be winning the game. But you're losing the game because you get minus points. Like, no, that token engineering.
The free rider problem, right?
Exactly. And the Token Engineering Commons gets to say, hey, guess what? Do you believe token engineering is important? If you do, you want to participate in this hatch. Because if you're right, you will make money and make token engineering better at the same time. How fucking crazy is that? Instead of minus points for donating to an important cause that you think that will make collective good, you get plus points. Wild, and that's and it shouldn't be about money, right? But there is this weird thing where it's got to be about both. And in our minds right now, it's so hard to be like collective good plus money, right? It's like, no, it's always, our pattern is always no, collective good minus money. There has to be that connection, and we have to make this leap to be like, no, actually collective good is value production, and value production is rewarded.
Totally agree.
It's hard though.
And what is the call to action for those people that might be interested in, experimenting with all these new type of systems and with token engineering in general? What is the call to action for them?
Well, learn more about what we're doing and be part of it. Like the call to action, I don't know if right now it's hard to say because there's an onboarding working group that is just getting started, and they're going to need to define the calls to actions, like how people activate themselves. But then the onboarding group should be able to hold their hands through the process, because our first call to actions are for people who will add value, create a positive sum game for the Token Engineering Commons. We don't need to get the megaphone, go on blockchain talk or whatever and Reddit. I actually don't think that those are as valuable as they would be for a lot of token sales or whatever. This is a closed token sale. Only people who have passed our filter and we feel like actually care about token engineering and the future of this field being advanced, those are the only people that should be allowed in the hatch. After the hatch, we have a completely open dynamic where we say, come on in, speculators, we can handle you now. The initialization needs to be the trusted seed of like, oh man, Simon de la Rouvier, he invented bonding curves. Zargum is like a genius. We need Vitalik in here. We need people who care about token engineering. Barnaby, people writing CAD things, people who are in the meat of it, people who are like Amin Salami, who's doing Ryan from SpankChain. Like these minds, these people, and who have valuable perspectives and are in the field right now and need and can benefit from public goods in the token engineering space, we need them. I don't need the random guy on Twitter. And we do not want them in our hatch. We do not want, they can come in a little bit. Okay, so I should say, the strategy has been, yes, actually we do want them in our hatch, right? but only for a little bit. We want to get people, we want as many perspectives as possible, right? Like there's always value in a unique perspective, but we can't let them become whales if we don't know that they care about actual creation of value in the token engineering space. It's so critical that 95% of the hatch is like, oh yeah, we are a bunch of people who care about token engineering and believe this is going to change the world and make it a better place, and we want to use these tools. We just need this cool economic game to coordinate our collective action, you know. And then once that happens, then once it's been initialized, the collective game can start. And the collective game needs to be held accountable to the rest of the world, right? If people think that this collective game is producing value, then they can join. They have a clear way to join. They can speculate on the future value that this collective game can produce. And that's where the bonding curve mitigates some of this weirdness about the price discovery and these things. And everyone who's in the hatch, you know, it's 100% vesting for 6 months or something like that, whatever. There'll be forum posts and we'll discover these details about the hatch together. We'll come up with these things together. But it's going to be like, honestly, we're going to make sure that it doesn't make sense for you to want to join the hatch if you only care about short-term profits. It would only make sense if you care about, like, you know, the development of token engineering over the next several years. That's a filter, you know, that we're going to make abundantly clear. But the people who pass that filter, they get if they're successful in governing this economic game of value creation in the token engineering space, they will be rewarded, and they should know about that. And it's okay. It's okay for them to be rewarded.
Yes, totally. And what do you think is the ideal outcome for the hatch? And just after you mentioned that, what would be the ideal outcome in 10 years?
Oh, baby. Man, this is funny because I was just asked this today by the onboarding group. The ideal outcome for the hatch would be a really good distribution of tokens amongst, like, I would say, like, no one having more than 5% of the token engineering commons token. And you know, that would be amazing. And if so, maybe less than a couple people that have more than 5%, like 2 people maybe max, because there's always this, it's so hard to avoid the what do you call that, the distribution, you know, where it's like, what,
the Guinea
Guinea distribution and power law distribution. That's the word that I was looking for. It's really hard to avoid the power law distribution in these systems. So, but if we can make sure that, like, there's 100 people and no one has more than 5% of the token, or even there's, like, of the top 100 people, maybe, and we have, like, a lot of people buying into the hatch that are superstars, and they have skin in the game now, and we raise, like, you know, millions of dollars. That would be a successful hatch. And also,
when you say millions of dollars, what do you mean? What type of scale are you looking for?
What do you mean?
Like, what is a good number? Let's say, what is necessary in order to get this started?
Well, that's hard to say. So this is the other part of the hatch that I was just about to say is, okay, so there's the hatchers, there's the builders, the impact hour people who are with us, and then there's the proposals people. And a lot of people are going to wear every hat, right? But the piece that I haven't been talking much is about the people who are proposing ideas to the token engineering commons. A successful hatch will have a lot of hatchers and a lot of proposals before it's over, you know, before the hatch is over. There's going to be people
why is that necessary?
Because that's the fucking point. You know, we are not here to DAO for DAO's sake. And this is what I really worry about with every DAO that I see. It's like they're DAOing to DAO. No, we're dowing to create value for token engineering and the field of token engineering. We're not dowing to go like, create liquidity mining schemes. We're not dowing to like improve the conviction voting thing and add negative votes. Like, those are operations. That should be like 10% of our attention should go towards DAO operations. 90% should go towards token engineering public goods funding and people who want to write CAD models, or the TE Academy.
I mean,
TE
with
book.
that, Griff, does it mean like experiments? Does it mean like try new things out? Or what does it mean when you say having a lot of proposals? Proposals of what? What type of groups are we looking for?
Proposals to spend money on building out token engineering public goods. So for instance, Shebnem's book and the Token Engineering Academy are probably the two most obvious token engineering public goods. That plus CAD itself, right? Those are like the prominent public goods that are being worked on in the TE community. None of them are being funded appropriately. And none of them they all have huge positive sum games, but we need clear proposals on how to fund them in a way where their success would be supported, right? Like, it probably shouldn't just be like, oh, here's enough money to do the academy for the next 2 years, like, boom, go. It should probably, needs to be some kind of interesting structure that mixes accountability and progress with like funding, because so that all these geniuses can actually focus their efforts on just doing that and not having to worry about getting a side gig to pay their rent.
Great, that's a great answer. And then coming back to the other question, what does success looks like in 10 years?
In 10 years, I think that this becomes something like ICANN, or something like an engineering. I mean, this is what Zargam was always kind of thinking of it, is that it becomes like an engineering discipline, like coordination group that sets certain standards. Like, token engineering is a field of science. It is a field of engineering. This should be taught in colleges. 10 years from now, I'm one of the first people in the world to ever get a degree in digital currencies. I have a master's degree in digital currencies. It's from this tiny little college in Cyprus. Like 10 years from now, that college should we should have graduated doctors in token engineering, and they'll be regarded as like, highly regarded as important pieces of, like, just like a civil engineer, that actually signs off on designs. And we have systems in place to create safe, robust economic designs that solve problems for society, just like civil engineers design bridges, right? Like, we have the opportunity to create economic games to solve problems like crossing a river that will just improve society. And it's hard to see because it's such an abstract thing, and it's weird, and most people don't get money. I don't even get money, and I think about it all the time. Like, we don't understand how this stuff works and how we interact with it, but we don't really understand psychology either. But we have doctors in psychology. There's a whole psychological field because we understand it's important. Economies are important, and engineering economies needs to be treated as like a science, just like economics. It's a section of economics. It's economic engineering, and 10 years from now, success looks like token engineering being a legitimate field of study where there's colleges across the world that people flock to and compete to get degrees in. That's what it looks like, and also, probably third-party certification standards of how to say this is a good economic design, this is a bad one, like, little things like the graph. Just today, they set a gas like cap at 200. I don't know. I didn't look at it, I didn't look to see anything, but I remember I was part of the status ICO design like community. We were looking at it. Jordy, they used the mini-me token, which Jordy and I, worked on a lot and designed and iterated on or whatever. But like, they capped it at 50, and it blocked the Ethereum network for 2 days. We were spamming the network because of that design. And so, did the graph, when they made that cap, did they take into the learnings of the design of the status ICO or not? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know if it was a problem. All I know is I went to go do something. I went to go sign in an Argon multisig or whatever, and gas was 200. I'm like, what the hell is happening? So it would be nice if there was a clear place to go where it's like, oh, we have this idea. We want to cap the ICO's gas cost at 200. Has that ever been done before? And be like, ding, ding, ding. Yeah, of course it has,
All right, that's perfect. And just to wrap up, can you summarize very, very quickly all the different steps for having a sustainable project? You mentioned that there were 4 areas or 4 pieces of the puzzle that need to be linked together. Mm-hmm. Can you explain very quickly?
Yeah, so that's on the smart contract side. On the technical protocols, there's 4 big pieces. There's the hatch, which is where people put money in and bootstrap the economy. And after the hatch, 2 pots are filled. One pot is the economic pot, the bonding curve, which the money that goes into the hatch, a percentage of it is there so that people who want to buy TEC, they send money to that pot, and then TEC is given to them. And people who want to sell TEC, they sell it into that pot, and they receive money out of that collateral, out of that reserve. The other pot that's created is governed by conviction voting. This is the actual engine of the value creation in the economy, where this money is spent on token engineering public goods, and the people with TEC tokens get to decide how that money is spent, which public goods get funded and which ones don't, and which proposals get funded, and that's the real meat of the economy. So you have they're both that's the real meat of the value production. And then that's the engine of the value production is the funding pool. And then the economic engine is the bonding curve. And those are both started by the hatch. And then you have so that you have conviction voting, the bonding curve, the hatch, and then you have dandelion voting. And dandelion voting is the bureaucracy that governs the parameters of all of these pieces. So in dandelion voting, we have to set they're the ones that are managing the operational parameters, like MakerDAO does, right? So that's the other piece, and again, that's TEC token holders. But those are just the technical protocols. Way more important is the cultural protocols that people use on top of that, making sure that there's good communication, good relationships.
Human interaction.
Yeah, you can have a DAO with all of this system and
fancy
it works
stuff, but if without the right people, won't work.
And it's not even the people. It is the
interactions,
people,
interactions.
It's the relationships between the people, and making sure that the relationships are high vibe. If the same people are in the same DAO with the same parameters, but then when it's in relationship with this topic, they totally disagree and they don't trust each other, that's going to have one outcome. But the same people in a different topic with the same DAO with a high trust relationship, that's going to have a way different outcome. And it's the same people. It's the same everything. It's just the relationship dynamic. And that is really hard to communicate to most of the blockchain space. The relationships are so critical, they know it, but it's hard for them to think about that when they're designing it. So we're changing that. We're trying to make sure that that's key in the design. We're using language like calling this the cultural build. Yeah, the technical build is part of the cultural build. We're using the tech spec working group yeah, guess what? We're going to deploy a DAO, but we're going to make sure it's well specified and communicated so people understand what's happening and can debate the parameters. You know, the cultural build tribute. You know, this is a tribute to the people who are building the culture and also deploying the DAO, you know, but like it's the cultural build and making sure that this is like, you know, this is the flag I want to carry. You know, this is the what do they call that? The differentiator or like the unique selling point proposition or whatever of the token engineering commons. Number one, it's like public goods funding. We can donate to some, but number two, we actually care. We're not DAOing just a DAO. We have a real vision and a purpose. And the biggest thing is we actually care about the relationships of our community, you know, and we're going to focus on that. And that's where the majority of our emphasis is going on, is that we're building a community that happens to have a DAO, you know?
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you for that, man.
For sure.
I think this is going to clarify a lot of doubts for everyone. And yeah, we're gonna keep talking about it for sure.
Cool, man. I'm sorry I could rant forever. Thanks for keep cutting me off and keeping me going. This was really fun.
Worries.
Always fun chatting with you, Manu.
Yeah, thank you, hermano.